Hey viewers, my name's Cara. Today I felt like doing something a little different than what I've been doing lately, which is just a lot of talking about topics and talking about books a lot in particular, which I will keep doing in the future, don't get me wrong. So this time I just thought, let's do something different. Let's get away from the books and talk about something else. So something that I've been meaning to show and tell you about since I got it last year is this lovely box that my partner got for me slash made slash decorated for me to house a lot of my crystal collection. This is by no means my entire crystal collection, but this is a lot of the smaller pieces and a lot of the colorful pieces that could fit in something like this. So I wanted something that would have separations, different areas for storage so that I could separate different types of crystals. And I wanted it to have a glass top because I really wanted it to be a display item. I feel like, especially since I have so many crystals, most of my crystals came from my mom. They were not things that I bought myself or even necessarily obtained myself. Some things I received as gifts, but a lot of the stuff that I have, a lot of the crystals I have, a lot of the stuff, in my life, but also a lot of the crystals were from my mom. So she was the one who initially obtained them. And I just have so many. And a lot of the storage options that I used to have were like boxes, but they would be covered. So you didn't get to see them. And I just feel like there's no way that I obviously use all of these on like a daily basis. I have some that I'll show you that I do work with more regularly and carry around like in my daily life. But for the rest of them, I feel like if I have them around, they need to at least be on display. You need to at least be able to like see them. So I wanted something with a glass top. And I believe my partner found this basic box at like a craft store and then just did some staining with like a wood stain marker, added some things like this Leo charm as a little decorative button. And then I'm going to lift this up or tilt it and show you the other sides. It will be a little bit loud because the crystals will shift a little bit, especially because there's a drawer underneath, as you'll see, that has a bunch of crystals in it. So that's going to be rattling around. But this is the top. It's pretty plain with the Leo button. And then we'll open this up here in a second, but you might already be able to see it says, "I love you." So there's that. On the front, we have just a little bit of vine sort of scroll work with swirls and little leaves. This is actually something that I like to draw and doodle all of the time. So my partner kind of tried their hand at my art style a couple times here with the drawer, as you'll see. And there's a little tiny triple moon symbol on the handle of the drawer. On one side of the box, we have shifting crystals again. We have the moon phases with the full moon in the center. And then on the opposite side, we have the moon phases again, but from the perspective of the dark moon in the center. Inside the drawer, now the crystals have all shifted around. So actually, let's try to get them back. There we go. But inside the drawer, we have a bunch of crystals that either didn't fit in these categories up here because, as you'll see, they're in rainbow order, or you can maybe already see. I don't know how great the lighting is for you. But things that didn't fit the color scheme or that were actually just slightly too big to put in here. So we have some other kind of oddballs out down here. But in the realm of decoration, the bottom of this drawer is also decorated in a style that I like to use as well, and just ended up kind of with this heart-like shape in the center. So this is a doodling style and an art style that I love, that I've been doing since high school. So again, my partner tried their hand at some of my doodling techniques. So we have some stuff down here like this green calcite. We have, this is a labradorite. Several pieces of tiger's eye, because I have some big, thick pieces of tiger's eye that really fit perfectly in the height of this drawer, but don't fit very well many other places in this box anyway. There's a lot of stuff stuck up here. Oh, there's my Alaskan jade that's all wrapped up in tissue paper. This is actually the second time I'm trying to record this video because I recorded for too long and my camera cut out, and because I can't edit clips together, I had to just start all over once it cuts it into a second clip. And I had originally talked about these and I didn't realize they were actually hiding in the back of this drawer. So this is some pieces of jewelry quality Alaskan jade. They're kind of like rods that someone gave me, and I keep them wrapped in this tissue paper to keep them safe until I decide if I want to do anything with them. And I'll show you some other ways that I store my crystals, but for the most part, as you can see, a lot of them are in this box or in this drawer, and that's because a lot of these are not in danger of being harmed by touching other crystals. A lot of what I have is quartz or in the quartz family. The quartz family is a lot bigger than we would even necessarily think. You know, it's not just things that have quartz in the name, like smoky quartz, clear quartz, and things like that, but citrine is a quartz, amethyst, red jasper, bloodstone, those are also members of the quartz family, carnelian and green aventurine. So anything that's in that family, they all have the same hardness level. They're all the same number on the hardness scale, so there's no danger of them like scratching each other really. Some things I have are softer, like calcite is softer, but this is a really big chunk. I've had it for a long time, and just being in here and like even gently getting jostled around, which doesn't usually happen. It really would only happen because of me tilting up the box for the camera to see it. But on a day-to-day basis, that doesn't happen. It's not really in danger of being scratched by a lot of these other polished stones in here. If I were to take a quartz point and scratch it, yes, it would scratch, but day-to-day wear, they're really quite safe, and so I've always kept a lot of my crystals just together in the same place. What else is in here? We've got some banded agate, brown banded agate here. Doo-doo. I can't tell if that focused at all. But there's that. We have some more amethyst, just a bigger piece of amethyst, unakite, some moonstone, sunstone, more moonstone, little moonstone, more sunstone. We have some blue lace agate, we have a K2 stone, big piece of smoky quartz. There's also various things within here that I got from my mom that we collected through various means. Like at the medieval fair, there's a thing where you can go and like mine your own crystals, and you get a bucket full of sand and rocks and crystals, and you mine through and find whatever you want. So we don't necessarily know what all of them are. So I have some of those things, but I also just have some rocks in here from my local area that I've found like on the beach or that otherwise are just really cool. So like this is just a rock that has been polished sort of on two of the sides to reveal this very shiny inside, and so I just think that's super cool, so that's in there. This is also just a really cool rock. It obviously has some sort of minerals running through it, but I don't know what it is, so I don't necessarily know what everything is that I have, but I have been doing more in the past couple of years, trying to identify a lot more things. This is a Petoskey stone from Petoskey, Michigan. I have a couple of those from a girl I went to school with who was from Michigan. So yeah, that's some of the stuff that's in the drawer. And up here, if we open up the lid, as I mentioned, these are basically in rainbow order. So we have red, orange, yellow, green, blue, dark blue, light blue, dark blue, purple, pink, black. And then a lot of my white and clear stones are actually in like a cauldron-shaped bowl that I have. So those are separate because there wasn't room for all of them here, and I have kind of the mix and match in the drawer down there. So yeah, they're in color order. I don't want to shift them around too much because I did that the first time I recorded the video, and one, the video was way too long and it got cut off. But 2, I wasn't able to close the lid again, and it does take me a while to get them in a way that some of them, to get them to lie flat again. So I don't want to mix them up too much, but you can really see a lot of the stuff that's already there. The purple is a lot of amethyst, mostly amethyst. Who doesn't have a ton of amethyst, right? And so this is one of my favorite pieces of amethyst. That's actually one of the first crystals I ever got. I've had this crystal for a very long time, like probably a good 20 years. So I love that. One of the only things in the purple category that's not amethyst in here is this lepidolite that I got from the bargain shop at Lilydale Assembly in Lilydale, New York. And it's funny because when I look online, lepidolite, the pictures that I see are often a lot darker or even different colors. So this very light, kind of like a lilac or lavender type of purple, isn't what I see in most pictures of lepidolite, but that's the one that I got, and I love it. I loved the color. That's part of the reason that I was so drawn to it. In the pink category, most of this is rose quartz. We got lots of rose quartz, but there's also some rhodochrosite and rhodonite. This is a, sometimes it's called chiastolite or chiastolite. Chiastolite, I suppose it would be, because it has this cross sort of pattern in the top there. Another name for it, though, is andalusite. Just pop that back down in there with the rose quartz all over it. There's some pink dyed agate in here, so agate that has been dyed pink. We have a mangano calcite, which is pink. Another pink stone that looks very similar is morganite. I don't know if any of the stones I have are morganite. I tend to just think, unless it's something that was specifically labeled that I got at a shop or whatever, I tend to just assume it's rose quartz, although morganite is another one that looks kind of similar. In the red category, this is mainly red jasper. Lots of red jasper, some brecciated jasper, and that is the stone that I use in my chakra bracelets as the root chakra or base chakra. So we have red jasper, carnelian, which I have a bunch of in here, citrine, which I have a bunch of in here, green aventurine, same thing, sodalite, lapis, amethyst, and clear quartz. And then I also have the non-rainbow form that I make, which is just really if you don't like the look of wearing rainbow stuff all the time. These are other crystals that are also related with the chakras and have the same sort of magical properties and purposes, but aren't necessarily a rainbow spectrum. So there's like hematite in the place of the red jasper. So we've got hematite down here in the black section. But yeah, this is a lot of red jasper. There's some garnet. The orange section is mainly bits of carnelian, which is essentially just orange, translucent, kind of semi-translucent quartz. So it's a member of the quartz family that's orange. But then I also have some orange calcite here, which are beautiful and remind me of a creamsicle, like all the time. That's what I think of. This one is called root beer calcite. And I got a lot of these, as I mentioned. Most of my crystals and everything came from my mom, but any of the ones that I purchased myself either came from this one family that comes to my local medieval fairs in Ohio, and they sell jewelry that they make, but they also own land where they mine a lot of crystals, and so they sell them there. And other things that I've gotten typically have been from some of my local witchy shops here in Northeast Ohio. So the Dragon's Mantle in Akron, Ohio is where I got some of my orange calcite and root beer calcite. I also got this Botswana agate from them. I have this mahogany obsidian that I got from them. And then there's other ones that I've gotten from the shop that was formerly called Spirit Apothecary, recently had to change its name, so it is now Spirit Apotheosis in Bedford, Ohio. They are the people who host Cleveland area Pagan Pride. I've gotten some things from them as well, like this tourmalinated quartz, which is quartz with tourmaline inclusions. I do have a piece of black tourmaline here as well. And lots of other little stuff like that. Jet, onyx, obsidian, which are hard to tell apart, but they're much easier to tell apart in person because you can compare their weight and how shiny they are and all kinds of things like that. But in pictures, it's very hard to tell the difference. And I've also gotten this apophyllite point most recently when I got this tourmalinated quartz from Spirit Apotheosis in Bedford as well. So yeah, most of the yellow stones are Most of the yellow stones are citrine, which is sort of the yellow gold form of quartz, which I've heard is most often actually heat-treated amethyst, because when they treat amethyst, which gets its purple color from iron, with high heat, it turns yellow. It turns like gold, makes it citrine. This is a zebra jasper that I got from one of my viewers who became a friend, who also attends my local medieval fair. So we have met in person. This is from Kayla. Thank you, Kayla. This is a pyrite, also known as fool's gold. Probably one of the first things I learned about as a kid. One of the first, crystals or minerals that I learned about as a kid. And I also have one little raw piece of amber chilling in here that doesn't have any bugs or anything in it. It's just straight up amber. So that's there. Lots of green aventurine in the green section. The light blue section has this Botswana agate, even though it's more like a gray, just because I kind of needed a place to put it, and I wanted it to be part of the display, and it's sort of bluish in tone. And the apophyllite is in there too, again, even though it's clear, because I wanted it to be part of this display, and this was a nice place for it. There was fewer things in the light blue area, so there was room. There's some turquoise chips in there, but also amazonite pieces. The dark blue has a lot of sodalite. I got a lot of little pieces of the things that I use in my chakra jewelry because I wanted to have multiple sets in case I ever wanted to put together like kits to sell. But I haven't done that yet, but I did acquire a lot of little sodalites, a lot more little rose quartz, things like that. This is an azurite that I got from the bargain shop at Lilydale, where I got the lepidolite. We have some blue lace agate. There's some other things in here. This is a blue goldstone that I got at the bargain shop at Lilydale. Goldstone is a man-made stone, so it is not naturally occurring, especially not this, especially not these like blue and green and other like colored varieties that they make. There's a lot of stones that are man-made. There's a lot of things that are actually like glass with different colors, and there's also real stones that get dyed. As I mentioned, agate stones can be dyed many different colors. Howlite is another stone that commonly gets dyed different colors and then used in jewelry so that it has a nice vibrant color, but they are real stones as opposed to like other things that are glass, which of course comes from nature in its own way, but yeah, so there's different levels of like human beings altering things, and then we use them or we don't, so that's up to you. So I own some things that are man-made stones. I have a big piece of gold stone down in the drawer. I already talked about that. Yeah, so that's what we have here. Basically a lot of different things. One of the things that I do when I'm looking to try to figure out what my stones are is, I know a lot of people recommend Judy Hall's books in general, especially the Crystal Bible, which is definitely one that you will see at a lot of witchy shops that sell crystals, or a lot of like gemstone shops will even have Judy Hall's The Crystal Bible because it is such a well-known and highly recommended source. I don't own that book. I own Judy Hall's The Crystal Zodiac, which is a book that she did that connects crystals to your astrology. So it talks about what crystals are good for your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising or ascendant sign based on what those signs say about your personality and what you tend to need in your life. She recommends the crystals that are good for that, which is actually how I ended up getting the apophyllite this past year. because I was rereading that book and also this book that I'm about to show you, going through my crystal collection, trying to identify more things and just trying to see, like, obviously I have a ton of crystals, and like reminding myself of what some of the ones that I haven't worked with a lot are good for, so I can start learning to work with them, deciding which ones I may want to end up selling, and kind of getting rid of some of my collection, passing it on to other people. I think mainly some of the big pieces will be going in that way, but a lot of these small ones, again, I collect multiples for specific reasons, so some of them might go, a lot of them might stay though. But one of the new things that I read about that I was like, I don't own that, and I've never owned one of those and I'd like to, is apophyllite, because Judy Hall talks about it, and it's called the Stone of Truth. And you may remember that my intention for last year, for 2018, was truth. And it's also a stone that's recommended for Moon and Gemini people, which I am. So between those two things, I was like, I think I'm going to get one of those someday. And then I had a gift card for my local witchy shop, Spirit Apotheosis. So I went and got some things from them. I got a new deck of cards, I got an apophyllite, and I got this tourmalinated quartz, which is another thing that I had a teeny tiny little piece of, but I wanted like an actual, like something I could hold in my hand and not worry about like dropping it and losing it forever kind of thing. But the book that I do have that I like to use a lot is this one. You may have seen me talk about it on Instagram because I was rereading it last year in 2018. So I posted about it when I finished rereading it, or while I was rereading it, either way. But it's called The Magic of Crystals, Color, and Chakra, and I really love this book because it does talk about all three of those things separately in their own sections, and then it also talks about kind of bringing them together. And one of the things I love about this is that it talks about, when it talks about crystals, it talks about their chemical formula and the actual chemical makeup. That's the color section. Where's the crystals? Here we go. So it talks about them separated by color as well, bringing in the color energy, because, and another reason I have my stones separated by color is that sometimes you don't know what a crystal is, but you can still use it based on the color and the vibration and the energy that that color that we observe has for it. So it's broken up into colors here, but then it also talks about the chemical formula and like what mineral it actually is. So like here it talks about bloodstone is a form of quartz, which isn't necessarily something that we think of if we've just, forever just, bloodstone is a different stone, and we don't necessarily think of like, what is it, or like what family it's from. Green aventurine is also in the quartz family. So, lots of stuff. And then back here, in the way back, there's this kind of reference guide, couple of pages that list the chemical formulas as well. So you can kind of go through here, and I went through here last year and I looked up all of the ones that have the chemical formula of quartz, which is SiO2. And some of them I knew, so like all the different forms of quartz that we call quartz, smoky quartz, clear quartz, rose quartz. Some people call some things milky quartz. That's not one that I really come across a lot, but it's a name. Amethyst, citrine, all of those are quartz. I knew that. And amethyst, it specifically mentioned, is SiO2 plus Fe, because it's the iron that gives it the purple color. Agates are quartz. Typically, agate is the name given to the banded varieties, like I showed you that stripy brown one that was in the drawer. So that's typically the name given to it, but there are other things where it's given that name even though it doesn't have the banding. So people do some interesting things with the names, like moss agate doesn't have any banding, but it has like the moss look in it, and it's a form of quartz. So, people like put together these names in different ways. Red jasper is in the quartz family, bloodstone. Carnelian is essentially orange quartz, green aventurine. And chalcedony or chalcedony, I've heard it pronounced both ways. I'm not sure if either is more correct or if they're both acceptable to pronounce the CH or not pronounce the H. But chalcedony is basically the name of microcrystalline quartz. So that's typically what we see, like if you have a geode and you open it up and it has the very like tiny crystals. It doesn't really have the big like points like one of these clusters might. So the microcrystalline varieties are called chalcedony. According to mineral.net, this name is really most often reserved for the blue and white varieties in order to differentiate them from other types of agates with those same names. Like blue lace agate is blue and white, but it's banded. So the name gets used in different ways, but it really refers to all forms of microcrystalline quartz and also microcrystalline forms of another mineral, which I can't remember right now, but mostly quartz. So there's different names that will get applied to things. But yeah, so I thought that was really interesting, and I just went through and I was like, here's all the things that are listed as SiO2 as their chemical formula. So these are all the same basic chemical makeup, and then we give them different names based on the way that the different colors intermingle, the way that different other elements and minerals affect them, like with amethyst. And then opal is also related to the quartz family. It's SiO2 and H2O. So that gives it the more kind of watery look to it. So I love the fact that that book includes things like that. The last thing I guess that I just wanted to show you is some of the other storage methods that I've used, because I think that could be interesting for people. Let me know if it's not. Click away if it's not. But yeah, so a lot of my crystals now are stored in here that used to be stored in closed boxes. But I still have some things that are. So I have like this box that has some of the like metal inlay, and some of it started poking out and it's really dangerous. So we just put Scotch tape over it, you know, just work it out. whatever you need to do. Doesn't look super pretty, but you know, it works. This has some crystals in it, but also mainly this is the box that my pendulums live in when I'm not using them. But this is like a velvety jewelry bag that has some crystal points in it. And then there's a bag with some crystal jewelry that someone else made. A bag with one of my pendulums, another pendulum is wrapped up in there. Some other crystals are wrapped up in here in a bit of muslin. So some things I do keep separate in little organza bags or these little velvet bags or whatever. So some of them I do, so like I already showed you, the Alaskan jade that was wrapped up in the tissue paper. So some things, if I feel like they really need to be protected and kept separately, I will wrap them in a little bit of fabric of some kind. Or I crochet. So I crochet a lot of these little bags, which are really good for storing crystals, and I also even make them smaller, where it's like just enough for one crystal. This one just happens to be rainbow. But I make them in all kinds of colors. You can ask me about these if you'd like some, because I do sell them, although I'm not going to be using my Etsy shop anymore, but I'll make separate announcements about that. But I will be offering a lot of the stuff that I do, like my bracelets and all kinds of stuff like that I make. But it'll just be more directly through me, and I'll talk about it on social media. I'll put a page on my blog, stuff like that. Taking a sip of my tea. I also have some crystals that are just stored in these sort of jewelry boxes that you might have lying around if you used to have a lot of jewelry or other people give you a lot of jewelry. So this is all like my mom and my grandma giving me stuff over the years, and I use it for storage. So this just happens to be where my fluorites live. It's not because I wanted my fluorite to be kept separate or I felt like they needed to be protected from anything else or whatever. It's just where they ended up, and because they've always been in here, I've always kept them in here. I just don't see any reason to put them anywhere else, so I know exactly where they are. There was a period years ago, where I was just obsessed with fluorite, and so I had them in one place. I knew exactly where they were, so now if I ever want them again, I know where they are because they're always in this thing. You can get these little velvet bags. This is where I actually got a lot of my little crystals. Again, either my mom bought them for me when I was a kid, or a couple times I've gotten them myself. You can go to a gem shop and there's usually like a big bin of inexpensive crystals, lots of quartz varieties, that you can just stuff one of these bags full, and as long as you can pull it closed, you can get as many as you can fit in one of these little bags for $5. So I got a lot of my little things, the sodalite, the rose quartz, the citrine, the green aventurine, stuff like that, little clear quartz, ones that I recognize, that you can like dig through this giant bin full of basically a bunch of quartz. It's all tumbled, it's all polished, and just get a bunch of it, put it in one of these little bags. And you get them relatively inexpensively that way. So I do have those. And then one of the other things I've done when I travel is glasses cases, which you can get these at the dollar store. They're hard because they're meant to protect your lenses, so they protect crystals or crystal jewelry. So I use these a lot when I travel. And then some are big enough and sturdy enough that they just sit wherever. They just go in my bag, they go in my pocket, whatever. So this is my big chunk of rose quartz that, again, I got from my mom. And I love it because it sort of perfectly fits in my palm. And so this is the piece that I use the most often. It's big, it's substantial, it has some weight to it. So I use it under my pillow, I leave it next to my bed, things like that, because rose quartz is also good for dream work as well as self-love. And smoky quartz, I tend to keep pieces around everywhere, and I do have a big piece of it, big chunk. But I have smaller sort of palm-sized pieces like this that I use and carry around. Like 9 times out of 10, if I'm going anywhere with a tote bag, this is in it. Some other big ones I have, again, that all came from my mom. You might have seen recently I've been showing this big guy because it sits next to me when I do videos here at this table. So big, huge cluster. I also have this one that is more flat, which I like because then you can actually put other crystals or pieces of jewelry or whatever other things that you need to cleanse or charge. You can actually just lay right on there like a little bed of crystals to help cleanse and recharge them. That one, we have a bunch of amethyst because, again, who doesn't have way too much amethyst? This isn't even all of them. My singing bowl is over here next to me too, and I just hit it, so you probably just heard that go off. Yeah, I have a ton of amethyst clusters. Like so many. So there's probably going to be several amethyst clusters that I'm willing to part with and pass on to someone else in the future, but these are some of the ones that just happen to be sitting next to me at the table because they were all in the same box when I unpacked them, and so they're just still hanging out right here. I have some big, I hit the singing bowl again. I have some big clear quartz points. This is one of the ones that I use the most often. So there are some that I do use on a regular basis, and then there are other ones that have always just kind of been around the house as basic energetic, participants, I would say, just for their basic energy clearing or different properties, but that don't get worked with as much, I guess you could say. But things like these are definitely the ones that I work with the most as far as the big pieces. And then all of the little tumbled things, it really just depends. It depends on what I'm doing. It depends on the month, the week, whatever. So there's a ton. I definitely love crystals. But I also definitely have way more than I would have if I had been obtaining them all myself. So I have my mom to thank for that, and also other people who have given me crystals as gifts over the years. I definitely would not have this big of a crystal collection if not for my mother. So I just feel like that needs to be said, especially if anyone we're always looking at each other's collections of things, whether it be books or tarot decks or crystals or whatever it is, and thinking like, oh my gosh, I want my collection to be like that. So I feel like it's important to contextualize this, that the only reason I have as many crystals as I have is largely because of my mom having collected them for years before me and then passing them on to me. And also, yeah, this is at least a couple decades worth of collecting, and I have maybe gotten five or six new crystals in the past 3 years, so maybe 2 a year. maybe. And so the 2 that I bought this year already are the tourmalinated quartz and the apophyllite. So I might not get any more crystals this year. You know, at least myself. Yeah, people might give them to me. I don't know. Because I definitely get given crystals a lot. That's something that happens when people know you like crystals. They give them to you all the time. So let me know about your favorite crystals in the comments. Really, anything you want to let me know. What was your first crystal that you ever worked with? What was the first crystal that someone gave you or that you got for yourself? Have you also gone through periods of time of being really drawn to a specific type of crystal, like I was when I was obsessed with fluorite for a while? Anything, whatever you want to talk about. Favorite crystal books as well. So this is one of my favorites. I know Judy Hall is going to be another big favorite for a lot of people. So yeah, any other cool stuff like that? Any favorite resources for identifying crystals? Even I would love to see that because I've done a lot of Googling and a lot of online research, and some websites are really helpful, some are less helpful. So if there's any gems out there, no pun intended, but hey, pun intended, if there are any good websites out there for crystal identification or for learning magical properties, things like that you want to share with people, let us know. Maybe just tell us the name, because again, I'm not sure if the link is going to show up in the comment or if it'll send your comment to spam, but I'll check that out. And yeah. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Until then, don't forget to be awesome, blessed be, and goodbye.